Video games and westerns go together like peanut butter and jelly, although I've never seen too many Old West themed games, or at least any that aren't Custer's Revenge. Woo boy, can't get me enough of that good old Custer, woo! Though the concept is about as open as the American frontier itself, like you could fucking shoot people, ride horses, and then fucking shoot people. Guns! A good example of what I'm talking about are the Red Dead Redemption game. These games have really stood the test of time with their unforgettable stories and their extremely immersive worlds, allowing one to release their inner outlaw whenever they please. Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2 easily rank up there with some of Rockstar's best games, maybe even some of the best games in general, at least in my head. But the Redemption series isn't the first time Rockstar has tangled with the horses. There is one game for the PS2 and Xbox, the first game to actually hold the Red Dead name. A game so influential that it's been forgotten to time. So sit down and shut up as I tell you the legend of Red Dead Revolver. Our story starts all the way back in 1984, the year Angel Studios was founded. Back then, they were more of a computer animation studio. They made plenty of animations for movies, games, music videos, and the like. Cutscenes for stuff like Mr. Bones on the Sega Saturn. Yeah, those were the same guys. Well, anyway, not long after, Angel Studios would start to make their own games. The studio's efforts caught the eye of Capcom, who came up to them like,
"Yo, what up, G? We got this cool-ass game called Resident Evil 2 and shit, man. And we were wondering if you would like to help us make the N64 version, man. Yeah, we saw Major League Baseball featuring King Rick Jr. and thought it was tight. Yeah, man. Yeah."
Porting Resident Evil 2 to the N64 was a huge undertaking to say the least. The reason the Nintendo 64 has got like 0 games on it is because nobody wanted to develop for the weak little shit. Those cartridges couldn't handle as much data as disk-based media could, so if someone wanted to port an especially hefty game to the system, the developers would have to start hacking away at anything that looked at them funny. But Angel Studios, as well as a couple of others from Capcom and Factor 5, managed to pull a relatively impressive port out of their asses. It stayed true to the PSX original while adding its own additional content. With a job well done, Capcom put Angel Studios on speed dial, and in the year 2000, Capcom and Angel Studios would collaborate once more. This time on an original property going by the codename SWAT, headed by Capcom mainstay Yoshiki Okamoto. Okamoto would later request the game be turned into a western. What inspired this change is different depending on who you ask. Some sources say it was made as a spiritual successor to the game Gunsmoke, one of the few games Yoshiki Okamoto directed. But others claim the change was inspired by the movie Blind Man. Whatever the case, the team got to work on SWAT, renamed Spaghetti Western Action Team. 2 years later, Capcom unveiled some of their new games at E3. Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny, Automata Lista, which is a pretty slick looking game by the way, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Whirlwind, under the working title of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure 5, which is an odd trailer to say the least, especially if you don't know what a JoJo is. And although shown at E3, this game never got an English release. And last but not least, SWAT, now known as Red Dead Revolver, which looked like Earthbound 64 if Clint finally snapped. Yeah, not a looker this one. Red Dead Revolver had an extremely troubled development, cultural differences between Angel Studios and Capcom being cited as a major issue. Not long after, Red Dead Revolver was just sort of forgotten about as Angel Studios began working on other projects. They made 3 games in the Smuggler's Run series and Midnight Club Street Racing, all of whom were published by Rockstar Games. Being at the time in the company's history where they were snatching up studios like mad, they would end up buying out Angel Studios not long after. Now a part of Rockstar's gang is Rockstar San Diego, they would continue work on the Midnight Club series, releasing Midnight Club 2 in the summer of 2003. In the meantime, Rockstar Games execs looked over games in development at San Diego to see what was worth keeping. Despite being in an unplayable state, Red Dead Revolver caught the team's eye. Conveniently for them, Yoshiki Okamoto was on his way out from Capcom to go found Flagship. Red Dead Revolver was officially cancelled, leading Rockstar Games to grab the rights as soon as possible. Which leads us to today's game and Rockstar's future money printer. But I digress. Let's get her done, as they say. See that? I put some country twang in there and let's just put it in already. Our story starts in Grayville, USA. Population smog. A man returns home to his wife and son and announces to the family that they've struck gold. To celebrate his newfound wealth, the father had 2 guns made. Red wants to try out his father's gun, but is instead gifted his old revolver to play with. Gun safety be damned. Suddenly, a bunch of goons come in and start terrorizing the family. Red makes his way back up to the house, only to watch his father get shot by Colonel Darren. Red ends up shooting Darren with his father's new revolver, the bullet somehow tearing Darren's whole arm off. Some years later, Red and his dog run into Stinky Pete from Toy Story, who's really fallen from grace, resorting to selling off his old junk on eBay. Most of the items sold in stores are just that, junk. They only serve to fill out the journal pages in the game's main menu. Now you may be asking how a shit-ass little kid ended up with $884. Well, the same way any hard-working American would. Walmart. Though he does do some murder on the weekends. Feeding into Red Dead Revolver's arcadey persona, money is awarded for shooting dudes in certain places. You can also combo kills to earn even more money. This is very unusual coming from a Rockstar game. Games in the Grand Theft Auto series as well as in Red Dead often feel a little mindless, where you can completely disregard cover and remain untouched. Which applies here as well, in the sense that you'll think you're untouchable until you look down and notice 2/3 of your health bar is gone. There's little to no indication that you've been hit. All it's given to you is a tiny little red arrow that's like, maybe it's supposed to fit in with Red's personality. He is kind of that anime-as, doesn't really talk too much type, so maybe he doesn't say anything when he gets hurt because he's numb to the pain and shit. But you know who isn't numb to the pain? Red's dog. We end up getting in a shootout with the guys who shot Red's dog, plus a few more who apparently saw a fistful of dollars. Hey, Clint Eastwood called, he wants his iron plate back. After taking care of the situation, Red tends to the sheriff. He's been badly wounded. Unfortunately, we can't find a doctor here as Widow's Patch is a ghost town, so Red and the sheriff hop on the train to Brimstone. But the train is then raided by bandits, Red being the only gunslinger brave enough to fight back. Oh, oops. Well, it's gonna be a long walk from here to Brimstone. It's a good thing I brought my MP3 player. If there's anything that Rockstar Games is good at, it's a commitment to a game's style. Red Dead Revolver is no exception, and its music is a great example. It's the type of music that can make you feel like a cowboy, no matter the circumstance. Though the reason I bring it up is that none of the music was actually made for the game. Don't believe me? Check the manual. The entire soundtrack is listed. Most are Italian movies from the 60s and 70s, though not all of them are westerns. Suor, Omicidi is a nunsploitation film from 1979, which according to this user review on IMDb is really odd. Anita Ekberg plays a cancer-obsessed nun who works as a nurse. Old people start getting killed and she starts flipping out. She stomps on an old lady's false teeth, shoots at morphine, picks up a guy and screws him, and gets sexually involved with a fellow disturbed nun. Is she the killer? Does she even know herself? Watch Killer Nun to find out. Warhol regular Joe DeSalleandro appears as a doctor but isn't very memorable. Ekberg's lesbian lover sure is though! One of the hottest nuns you'll ever see. Back in the game, we make our way to Brimstone, the game's hub world. We end up meeting with the sheriff of the town and accept our first bounty, Pig Josh. Red makes his way to the target's last known location when we notice that not everything is as it seems. We make mincemeat of those guys when our bounty finally shows up. His strategy is to run directly into you and blow you the fuck out. Another holdover from the Capcom days, absurd boss designs. There's another guy who's like a crotchety old man with a Gatling turret stuffed inside a coffin. Now you may be thinking that there's no way an old man could carry a gun like that. However, at one point he was also supposed to be able to fly, which is absurd but not as crazy as Pig Josh blowing himself up without going ghost. But what's even crazier than that is how fast this bitch runs. Is this dude Usain Bolt on the way over here? Eventually, Pig Josh decided to go the pacifist route. Joke's on him though, because I prefer the genocide route. And you can't make a Megalovania without shooting a couple of pussies. After a while though, I guess he figured out bullets hurt, so gave me the Nagasaki treatment. So you may be thinking to yourself, surely the game doesn't expect you to beat the boss dealing that little damage, right? There's gotta be like a trick or something. And I mean, you're right. So what you're supposed to do is make Pig Josh lose sight of you, then sneak up behind him and shoot him in the back, stunning him. Repeat until he dies. Whoa, wait a minute. That ain't right. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? I mean, I'd never lived in the 1800s before, so I can't say if that's just how it was. But I don't know. I don't think the sky is supposed to turn off like that. Huh. I could just be freaking out over nothing. But I think my 360 is haunted. Lately, I've been waking up in the middle of the night to these bizarre images, and I think it might be the spirit of your mom after I fucked her to death. What? Come on, she was a real big atop the fourth wall fan, okay? You just didn't know her like I did. Well, anyway, we're gonna be playing the rest of this on the OG Xbox. Yeah, sure, it may look like shit, but at least everything's not phasing in and out of existence every 5 seconds. We end up in the Brimstone Saloon. Red overhears a conversation about a guy who lost his arm, and then he tries to involve himself in said conversation, but gets shut down. Not taking no for an answer, Red threatens to stab a bitch, when all hell breaks loose. You don't have any guns, but are given some bottles to slice people up with. You can also throw them, though I wouldn't recommend using them all up, because I don't think you can kill without one. That, or it takes forever. The bar fight goes on for a hot minute until we go upstairs into an auditorium, where Space Jam Sam is about to hit us with a slam, bam, thank you ma'am. Space Jam Sam is one of those bosses that gets stunned by slamming into shit. Until he isn't. Once all these tables run out, this fight gets harder. Space Jam Sam evolves into Scholar Samuel, as he suddenly stops right before hitting the wall. Occasionally. Don't ask me how that happened. Oh, and don't get me started on this throw. Samuel Hogan fucking picks you up without warning and throws your ass. Space Jam Sam gets slam jammed, and Red is sent to the slammer. In jail, the sheriff tells us a nice little bedtime story about a man named General Diego, who failed the same mission over and over again. And while he eventually finished the mission, nothing interesting happened, so nobody gave a shit, and the mission was skipped. The end. So Red is let out of jail with the task of killing Colonel Darren, and we make our way to a cool base of some kind that looks like a naked woman. After engaging in some stealth, Red is knocked out and kidnapped by Colonel Darren, but later escapes captivity with the help of Shadow Wolf. We attempt to make our way out of the mine with some actual stealth, for all of 2 minutes, until it's back to shooting people. Which I'll give the game credit for. It doesn't try to force in different styles of gameplay for no reason. It's a shooty bang bang game, nothing more, nothing less, and I like that. Next mission sees Buffalo Soldier, a character so important they forgot to give him a name, take a ride down a canyon while being shot at by Indians. Or at least, I think that's who I'm shooting at. This is less of a level and more of an eye test. Now where is that hot air balloon? Meanwhile, Red and Shadow Wolf confront Colonel Darren. After defeating him, Red goes after General Diego next. He's in this train. The idea is to shoot the front of the train until it breaks with his minigun. But the minigun eventually runs out of ammo, so I was left to pelt the train with pebbles and wondering if I was actually doing anything. Turns out I was. So the next step was to kill Diego himself. I thought this was supposed to work like other bosses where you run and hide, but given how close you start to him, that became impossible. Fortunately, mindless shooting saved the day in the end. With the man who killed Red's parents dead, Red enjoys a peaceful day in Brimstone where people kill each other for money. It's a showdown contest. Be the fastest draw in the West and earn some cash. Or in Red's case, be the main character. Thank God for it too, because I wouldn't have gotten far otherwise. On the third and final duel, some utter tomfoolery ensues, where this guy gets the Undertaker to try and kick your ass. He fails the duel in spectacular fashion, but somehow survives and is told to take care of business, as it were. Which apparently means play hide and seek with Red and just start blasting random bystanders when you get bored. This fight is real boring. You're asked to not only find this guy, but attempt to keep him in your line of sight, as well as not hit any bystanders who are moronically running around like chickens with their heads cut off. All the while, you're armed with BB guns that do negative damage. Oh, and don't forget to watch your health, because Red's never drunk a carton of milk in his life. Though the pain in the ass chronicles don't end with this guy, because the next bit only gets harder. The next mission sees us attempt to break into Governor Griffin's office. You're tasked with protecting Jack Swift while he picks the lock to the front door. Starts off easy, but it quickly becomes overwhelming. A bunch of guys just start showing up, and it's all fun and games until the dudes with the health bars start slapping their cocks on the table. Suddenly you've got Jay, Terry, and Kirk trying to make use of your right posterior, and if keeping those guys out of your plentiful holes wasn't enough, try doing that while your pals are getting gangbanged by the government. The security gets a bit more lax once you're inside. Red and the gang make their way through Griffin's office and up to the roof. where Red is aided by Buffalo Soldier for a grand total of 5 seconds before an iron plate ends his career. Red, aided with the power of a slope, puts an end to General Griffin. Now, at the end of his journey, Red wanders off, only to be remembered in Easter eggs and free online DLC. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with this game. While not the same as the Redemption games, it easily stands out on its own. The gameplay is really good, a bit tedious in boss fights, but overall it was extremely engaging. The game doesn't look that bad for an Xbox game. I found many of the environments to be pretty to look at, and even though none of the music was original, these tracks were great picks. So much so that you could be fooled into thinking they were made for the game. Though, generally speaking, it's a game that doesn't go too above and beyond. It doesn't have the most mind-blowing set pieces. It's not going to blow your socks off with any innovative features or mechanics or anything like that. But god damn it, it's a really solid game. I'd even urge those that don't even really like Rockstar Games all that much to give it a try. Its arcadey aspects are something that makes the game really its own, and not just Cowboy GTA, but even those that like Cowboy GTA would probably enjoy this game too. Its story is pretty bare bones, it's not a gripping tale of crime and tragedy or whatever, but that's a part of what makes it stand out so much. This is something I could see myself going back to, even on the hard mode that unlocks upon beating the game once. Though you know who shouldn't be playing the game on hard? Red's dog.
Damn, Varmint!